Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And it's your boy Taco Bell Ronnie with the quick Tony Ferguson injury update, which he provided on Twitter last night after Kevin Lee had a dominant performance over Edson Barboza in the main event of UFC Atlantic City, in which he got a doctor stoppage TKO victory in the 5th round. Kevin Lee answered a lot of questions in the fight, and if you recall, Kevin Lee's fight before that was actually with Tony Ferguson. They fought for the interim championship. Kevin Lee had Tony Ferguson in a bad spot. I believe had him mounted, landed some pretty nasty ground and pound before Tony Ferguson ultimately escaped and ended up submitting Kevin Lee. But Kevin Lee came into that fight, if you recall, with staph infection, but it was still a hell of a performance by Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee. Tony Ferguson extended his winning streak, I believe, to 10 or 11, became the interim champion, and then unfortunately, en route to becoming the undisputed champion, he was scheduled to face Khabib at UFC 223. He had a freak injury, tripped over a cord. He was doing some like media obligations, tripped over a cord, ended up having to get surgery. It looks terrible after the surgery. You can see the pictures above were like right after the surgery. It was like, so I even seen some people saying, yo, is Tony Ferguson ever going to be the same after this injury? So that was very unfortunate, but it looks like Tony Ferguson's having some extreme healing. As you saw in that video, that's the video he shared on Twitter right after Kevin Lee's win. So it looks like Tony Ferguson, just 2 weeks in, as he said, is already about to get the staples out and start undergoing physical therapy, which is actually really interesting and throws kind of a curveball in the lightweight division, because the injury was looking so bad. It was like, okay, now who's going to fight Khabib next with Tony Ferguson out for a while? It very likely could be Conor McGregor. If Conor McGregor versus Khabib, I mean, that would be a huge fight at this point. Conor McGregor has talked about wanting to fight Khabib in Russia. I mean, it's great, right? But no, also remember the Barclays bus attack at UFC 223. So Conor McGregor and Khabib have a lot of heat and a big rivalry as of right now. That could be Khabib's next fight. Khabib's going to observe Ramadan first, so he'll be coming back in the second half of the year. So when he comes back, he could be fighting Conor McGregor. But also, Tony Ferguson's a guy that's a legit #1 contender. He was the interim champion, and he kind of got stripped of that belt just because he got, he tripped over that cord, and Quinta took his spot. But Dana White, leading up to the fight, alluded to the fact Tony Ferguson will still be a #1 contender. So if Tony Ferguson can heal up, continue this extreme healing, he would throw a monkey wrench into this lightweight division, because we've got other killers coming up ready for their title shots. Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez, and Kevin Lee, who we just talked about extensively on the last video. So with that being said, it looks like Tony Ferguson, if he comes back, would jump all 3 of them dudes in the queue. So if Khabib fights Conor next it's likely to be Tony Ferguson. Unless maybe Tony Ferguson fights one of these guys, those 3 guys we just talked about. We'll see what happens, but it's looking like Tony Ferguson's injury is coming along a lot better than expected, which is good news for Tony Ferguson, as he's en route to getting that title. He was the interim champion and never even got to fight for the undisputed title because of all the politics going on with the lightweight division, with Conor McGregor, who had to be stripped, him and the interim. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on with the lightweight division. Make sure you check out the last video if you want to hear more about the lightweight shenanigans where Eddie Alvarez called out Khabib. So with that being said, though, it's looking like between Eddie Alvarez, Poirier, and Kevin Lee, one of those guys are going to have to, if I were them, I would call out one of the other, and for a big card. UFC 226, UFC 227, let's fight for that next #1 contender spot, because Tony Ferguson might be back sooner than later, and I have a feeling he would get the shot over any of those guys, because he not only was he the interim champion, he's still on a 10 or 11 fight winning streak in the lightweight division, and one of the best lightweights in the world. So can't wait to see what happens with this. There's been talks maybe Conor McGregor versus Khabib would be announced this week. I'm not sure if that's the case, but either way, man, stay tuned. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments about Tony Ferguson's extreme healing. I'm out. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
This is #1 bullshit.